All right, so here I am in the old city of Yerushalayim, and we are reviewing Siman Shin Beis, Hilchos Garden, basically, the laws of clothing on Shabbos. So we started the Siman last week. Just wanted to mention one of the things that I mentioned then, that Shlomo Zalman holds that there is no Isser Kibbutz by nylon, polyester, and all natural, unnatural fibers. So I did see in the Piskei Teshuvos, in the name of the Or Letzion and the Shevet HaLevi, they hold that there is an Isser Kibbutz. Even though the water perhaps does not get absorbed in those threads, but because it goes through the threads, so it therefore does seem to be like kibbutz. And it's not like leather where it does not penetrate it at all. He also points out that sometimes in these garments there may be some natural threads as well. So therefore, it's better to be strict. We spoke a little bit about folding last time. So just to continue on that theme. So basically, to be able to fold on a crease on Shabbos, it is very complicated. It has to be for the purpose of Shabbos. It has to be white. It has to be something that you don't have another one of. You have to do it without the help of a second person or even a chair, and so on. So it's a very uncommon thing to be allowed to do. Despite that, I did see some more lenient opinions. So first of all, the Yalkut Yosef brings that some allow folding a talus specifically on the lines, even if you don't plan on using it the same day. And they hold that it's because of the mitzvah of the talus looking nice. And if you fold it every single Shabbos on a different line, it's going to lose its beauty. So it's also mutter l'tzarech mitzvah. I guess they consider l'tzarech mitzvah similar to l'tzarech Shabbos. Another point is that it would seem that it should be also to drape pants that have a crease line in them, like a pair of suit pants, to drape them over the hanger in such a way that they lie on their crease, because that is a fold, so to speak. Nevertheless, the Piskei Teshuvos brings that there's a limud zchus also from the Shevet HaLevi. There's a limud zchus for those that are not careful about that and do hang it on the crease, since it does not involve any extra action or tircha. So they don't consider it like a special act of folding. It's just like they're kind of putting it there just in a way that it lands on the crease. It's more like an automatic thing, not an act of folding per se. On the other hand, on the more strict side, so we mentioned that you are allowed to fold if it's not on the crease. So a little bit more information about that, a few more chumras. First of all, the Piskei Teshuvos brings that even if it doesn't have a crease, but if it's the type of garment that folding it helps it not get wrinkled. For example, our shirts, you have a white shirt, so it doesn't have a crease per se, but if you leave it in a rumple, it gets wrinkled. And if you fold it nicely, so it gets a little bit, straighter as a result of that, it doesn't get a crease per se. So he says that can only be done with Tzarech Shabbos, for wearing on Shabbos, that is. Now, when it comes to folding something that has no crease at all, like underwear, like a sweater, like, T-shirts, socks, and all of that. Socks is a major issue of boyer, by the way. But anyway, so in the Alter Rebbe, in parentheses, it says that you're allowed to do this even l'tzarech chol, even for the sake of a weekday, which is a very big chiddush, because usually you're not allowed to do anything for the sake of a weekday. So it's hard to understand that. Why? Maybe it's not considered a tircha, it's not considered a difficult thing to do, or maybe it's so that your home should look tidy for Shabbos. Not exactly clear. But there are other achronim who disagree and say that it's only mutter if you're going to use it on Shabbos. And that being said, Alter Rebbe doesn't even say it as a clear psak. It is in parentheses, as I mentioned. Another point is that the Eliyah Rabbah says, that even when you're folding it not on the lines, so the mutter if you are not able to do it before Shabbos. So I guess he considers that some kind of tzorich. But if you could have done it before Shabbos, then you can't. Other achronim do not mention that Eliyah Rabbah and apparently do not hold of him. Speaking of folding, the Yalkut Yosef says that you are allowed to fold the corner of a page to keep your place, because that's not considered like you're creating anything special with that fold. On the other hand, he also says that in terms of, actually the Piskei Teshuvah says, in terms of folding paper in a way that you make a usable item out of it. For example, if you make a paper airplane or something like that out of the paper, he says that that is not allowed. Also on the topic of making creases, so you're not allowed to make a crease in a garment even without using a regular iron. If you want to put like a heavy object down on top of a shirt or a pair of pants or anything, just so in such a way that it makes a crease, that is not allowed. There is a whole discussion out there about the old types of irons they used to have, which were basically weights that used to press down, and the shirt or whatever it was would be in between the weights, and it was very tight, and then you would have to loosen it and take it out. And there's a question if it's so tight, so when you loosen it, it's like you're being soiser it and so on. So that's all a discussion that we have in Shulchan Aruch, but in practice we don't really have such irons today. Okay. Okay, so then in the Siman, there's a discussion about scraping shoes off from the mud that is on it. So there's actually three, we'll make it four issues with scraping the mud off the shoes. First of all, if you're scraping the mud, wet mud, moist mud, two of these are only with wet mud. One of them is with dry mud, and one of them is with either one. Two with wet mud is that if you're scraping it off onto a wall, then it might look like you're actually adding to that wall. Piskei Teshuvah says that's talking about in the olden days when walls were made of very simple material, so the mud might actually resemble the simple kind of plaster they used to use in between the stones at that time. Nowadays, he says, mud on a wall just looks like dirt on a wall. It does not look like you're adding to the wall, because we just don't make walls out of mud anymore. But anyway, in those days, it was an issue with Nira Kamoisif Alabinian. Also, if you're talking about a non-paved floor, on a dirt floor, so then the other issue was, or yard or field or street or whatever, the issue was that if you scraped it off on the floor, you might find a hole that you'll fill when you scrape it off. You might look for a hole. If you do it and it happens to be a hole there, that's misasik. But if you find a hole and do it there, that will be nesed. So you can't do it anywhere because you may do it in the place of a hole. The Maisa Alter Rebbe Paskins is better to be strict, both the wall and the hole. Some are lenient to both, but at least one should be lenient with the hole. One should be strict with the hole. In any case, nowadays that we have paved roads, that whole thing is not shaykh. Then you have the issue that applies to dried mud. The issue with dried mud is that Rabbeinu Peretz holds that when you scrape off dried mud in such a way that it crumbles into small pieces, that is an isser of toichen. Toichen is when you take one item and you grind it up into small pieces. So this is toichen. Now, of course, it's not going to be toichen to haraisa, but it's some malacha she'en tzarich l'gufa. You don't need these little pieces of mud. Nevertheless, he says it's still awesome with our money. But he should point out that the Kolbai argues on this Rabbeinu Peretz. And he only brings Rabbeinu Peretz b'shem yesh oimrim. So in the Pnim, the first opinion, the Machaber just says that the only issue with scraping is the issue with the wall and the floor and so on. He doesn't say any issue with the crumbling. So it's mashma that he doesn't hold of the crumbling. And then he says yesh oimrim about the crumbling. So the Yalkut Yosef says that he's paskening the main halacha is not like Rabbeinu Peretz. On the other hand, the Alter Rebbe says to pasken like Rabbeinu Peretz and not to scrape off mud. It will break up into many pieces. The Mishnah Berurah basically says that because we have the opinion of Rabbeinu Peretz, so even though both the Kolbai and the Meiri also, he says, argue on Rabbeinu Peretz, nevertheless, he recommends that you be strict unless you have another tzad lahaka. If you have another reason to be lenient, then you can be lenient. For example, if you're going to scrape off the mud in such a way that it does not break up into pieces. Okay, it's worth noting that the Piskei Teshuvos says that nowadays our shoes, I forgot to say, the fourth issue with scraping mud off shoes is that you can't scrape it on a sharp surface because that may soften the leather. If you scrape off one layer of leather, that may soften it. Anyway, the Piskei Teshuvos says that we don't really do mamachik nowadays with that kind of action. Bottom of the shoes are hard, and scraping them is not really going to scrape anything off, and even if it does, it's just going to ruin the shoe. It's not going to make it smoother or better in any way. Okay. Polishing shoes is an isser of mamachik. Okay, now we have an issue about making beds. We know you're not allowed to prepare from Shabbos to the weekday. So if you finish sleeping on Friday night, you get up. If the whole purpose of making your bed is so you'll have a bed to sleep in on Motzei Shabbos, that's not allowed. And the same thing applies with all kinds of things. You're finished eating. If your whole purpose in cleaning the table is for the Malav Malka, that's not allowed. On the other hand, if you want to make the bed because you're going to be spending time in the room, for sure if you're sleeping in the bed, it's no problem. But even if not, if you're just going to be spending time in the room and you don't want the room to be dirty, messy, so then it's allowed. Same thing applies to cleaning up. If you want to clean up after lunch, not because you want to have a malav malka table, just because you don't have a messy table the whole Shabbos afternoon. So then that's allowed. And Alter Rebbe says you're allowed to make 10 beds even if you only need one. Because the whole thing is only usher if it's clear that you're doing it for the next day. But if it's not clear, then it's mutter. So each and every one might be the one that's for the next day. Same thing it says later about washing dishes. You need one of them, you can use all of them. You can wash all of them, Now, when it comes to hachana yidei goy, logically you could say, if it's only hachana, so let the goy do it. Because what's the whole problem that's going to disturb my Shabbos? I'm busy getting ready for the next day. If the goy is doing it, not me, so what's my isser of hachana? What did I do wrong? I didn't do anything non-Shabbos thing on Shabbos. I didn't show that I was caring about the weekday on Shabbos. On the other hand, that's the opinion of the Maharsham, the Das Torah. On the other hand, some say, and the Alter Rebbe says this, it's mashma, the Mishnah Berurah like this also. Some say the fact is it's an Isser Rabbanon. That's all. And Isser Rabbanon, you can't do it al yedei goy except through a shinui or any of the other ways that a Isser Rabbanon can be done. Through a goy. Okay, now in Shulchan Aruch there's a discussion. About scrubbing the sides of a garment together to make it bright. So for some reason, when they used to wash clothing in the old days, it came out like not smooth. They would smooth it by rubbing the sides of the garment together. That would also whiten the garment and make it look nice, and that is usher, certainly by outer wear, because people care that it should be white, and certainly by linen. In any case, the Piskei Tshuva says we don't really have such garments that we see that they get white by rubbing them, and therefore this whole thing does not apply. Okay, let's talk about a stain. You have a stain on your garment. You want to get rid of it. So you have a stain right here. I want to get rid of it. So I'm just using my nail to get rid of it. And there's a little stain underneath the stain. That was lunch, by the way, just a bit of soup there. And the stain is still left there. Oh, the Mishnah Berurah will be very happy. Because even though the Taz says that you're allowed to scrape off stains, even to the extent that there's nothing left of them, the context of that Taz, by the way, is we said before about scraping off dry mud, and that you might be doing an Isser of Toichen. Oh, I forgot to say, by the way, the Svara of those that argue about the parents might be that Ein Toichen Achar Toichen. That since you are doing Tchina as something that was already in little pieces, so Ein Toichen Achar Toichen. But in any case, the Taz says that if the mud has already come off, you just want to take off the roshim, you want to take off the stain left behind by the mud, but that's okay. That's no problem. And the Mishnah Berurah has a problem. Mishnah Berurah says that if you take off the stain, that's no less washing than it is to shake off a garment from dust. And no less of a malacha when you make a garment white by rubbing against each other like we done before. So why should this be different with scratching out a stain? And he seems to remain in disagreement with the Taz, although the Alter Rebbe does bring it down. Okay, but according to the Taz and the Alter Rebbe, you're allowed to do this, you're allowed to do it with your fingernail, you're allowed to do it with a knife or whatever. Now, excuse me, yawning, it's been a long day. Okay. On the other hand, if it leaves a stain behind, that's when the Taz would say that it's allowed, and it's not considered kibbutz because it's leaving a stain behind. Okay, let's talk a little bit about washing garments. So we know washing garments is one of the malachas in the Mishkan. They used to do it with the Urias and so on. Now we know that the Gemara says Shriyase zeu kibuse. By soaking something in the water, that is considered like washing it. Nevertheless, there is a bit of a contradiction to that concept from two Gemaras. One Gemara says in Yuma that you're allowed to walk through water to get to your Rebbe, even though it's in Kippur. as long as you make sure to do something to remind you not to squeeze it. Now, halachas in Kippur are pretty much the same as halachas for Shabbos. So, why are you allowed to do that? Why don't we say Shri Yasu Zeu Kibbutz? Another point is, it says in the Gemara in Shabbos that Mida Ba'aremes v'Teveles Bivgodel. A woman can make a trick and go to the mikvah with her clothes. Meaning to say, you can't put clothes in the mikvah on Shabbos if they're tummy, because you're doing a tikkun kli. On the other hand, the Gemara says a woman or a man can go into a mikvah because it's nearer to make it, because it looks like you're going to cool down. So, her clothes are tummy. She's tummy. She can go to the mikvah with her clothes, even though she wouldn't be allowed to put the clothes in separately. But here she can go with the clothes because it's considered like all one action of going in a way that looks like it's l'neger, and that's to just cool off. So, the point is that we have these two Gemaras that indicate you're allowed to go into water with clothes. Now there are three different answers for this Gemara. Maybe there's more, but three main ones that are brought down in this Shulchan Aruch, in this section of the Shulchan Aruch. Number one is one answer of Tosfos says that there is no isser of washing a garment if the garment is clean. Even if it has absorbed sweat or whatever, but if it's not visibly dirty in terms of like a stain or something, then there is no isser of shriyasa zeu kibbutz. Now there could be an isser of washing it in a normal way, especially if it's full of sweat or other not so visible stuff. It could be there is an isser in kibbutz, regular kibbutz. But if you're just doing the rinsing, no. So, it's one answer. I think it was the re. One answer of Tosfos. That when you are using clean clothes, it's okay. Another answer of Tosfos, I think it's Ben Tam, says, no, it has to do with derech lichloch. When you go into water wearing clothes, those clothes get dirty from the mikvah water. They don't get clean, they get dirty. That's called derech lichloch, and that's allowed. A way of dirtying. And finally, the Maram says that we're talking about big day or leather clothes. Now, I did see in the Alkut Yosef other answers for this question. The Rashba says that soaking is only usher with the intention to wash. Because when you soak, you're not actually washing. It's like the water is doing it on its own. So when you intend it, so then it's considered like you did it, just like when you plant a tree, even though it happens on its own, but that's what you did, it's mesiachas to you. On the other hand, if you didn't intend it and the water is doing it, then it's not usher. Another answer from the Tosfos Yishon is that it only applies to garments in the olden days where it was enough to wash. Nowadays you need detergent and you need to bang it and all kinds of things. Then we have the Rama Rottenberg who said that soaking is cleaning only applies to linen garments and not to other garments. In any case, like I said, the ones that are brought in halacha are the first two answers of Tosfos and the Maharan. So, Lamaisa, based on that, if you hold like the first answer of Tosfos, you're okay as long as the garment has no visible stain on it. It does not seem like that is the main psak. Both the Alter Rebbe and the Mishnah Berurah says one should be strict like the opinion that says there is an isser of shiyasa zeu kibbutz, even by a clean white garment. One should be strict about that. On the other hand, as far as derech lichloch, Alter Rebbe says that both agree, meaning to say both answers to Tosfos agree with each other, and agree that derech lichloch is mutar. So based on this, you should be allowed to wash your hands and dry them, no problem. You should out of the mikveh if you're so inclined, which I was warning it, and that's no problem. On the other hand, Maharam said that it was only mutter because she was wearing leather garments. So one wants to be strict like the Maharam, will at least shake off any excess water from his body, in case where he washes his hands, or just rub off extra, from his hands in case he washes his hands, or just rub off one's body after the mikveh before one puts using the towel and so on. Okay, Lamaisa, we do paskin like that opinion. So if it's derech lechloch, it's mutter, and it's only a tzara yosher toiv. It's a good thing to shake the clothing off. Now, when it comes to other materials, for example, plastic, it says you're allowed to put water on it. You can't scrub the water. You can't scrub it with the water. That would already be considered washing. The Mishnah Berurah says deraisa, the Alter Rebbe says derabbanan. On the other hand, if it's a hard object like wood, there's no issur to wash it and scrub it because it's not absorbing anything. Now, based on this discussion, there is a question about contact lenses. Unlike glasses, which are hard, you're allowed to wash them, no problem. Contact lenses are now made porous, so the water actually passes through them when it cleans them. In this sense, it's actually like the nylon clothes we said before, polyester clothes or whatever. Because, just like over there, Shevet Levi said to be strict and not to consider it like kibbutz, because it resembles kibbutz, because the water gets in between the threads. On the other hand, we said Moshe of Zalman hold that is no problem because it doesn't actually get absorbed by those threads. So similar thing here. According to those that are strict by the nylon garments, will also be strict concerning the contact lenses. Now, Wasner said what you should always make sure before Shabbos the contact lenses are not dirty, so that when you're washing them, you have additional means to be making. Because besides the fact that we said maybe it's not considered absorbed, but in addition to that, it's not dirty, right? Ree says, or whoever it was in that first sense, so Tosfos holds that if it's not dirty, there is no issur of kibbutz. So why do people put their contact lenses into solution overnight? First of all, it shouldn't dry out. Second of all, the bacteria should not ruin it. So bacteria is not really visible to the human eye. It's not considered dirty. On the other hand, you're preventing other bacteria from gathering up, and therefore it is mutter. Okay, based on the fact that derech lechloch is mutter, we come up with the interesting halacha. We know that if there is a revius of meraglayim, or not even a revius, if there's a normal amount of meraglayim that is on the floor, to be mevatle, to nullify it, to be able to daven in that area, you have to pour onto it a revius of water. On the other hand, if it's absorbed, and it's just a small amount, then you have to nullify it with water, but you don't need a lot of water. So you took a baby on your knee before they came up with the brilliant invention of wearing diapers and whatnot, and the baby did its business, and now you got some urine over your pants. You want to daven mincha? You want to daven shachas, Meyer, who knows what? So can't. You can't put water on it. By the way, when we say you can't put water on a dirty thing, we mean water or any other thing that's going to cleanse it. Even if in some contexts that cleansing would be considered dirtying, if right now it's cleaning, it's awesome. So spitting, I mean, from an objective perspective, usually spitting is considered dirtying. If somebody spits on your clothes, you would not be too comfortable leaving that there. On the other hand, if you have some fraying on your shirt and you use some saliva to get rid of it, well, that's a way of cleaning. So therefore, that is a problem. Anyway, getting back to what I was saying. So based on the principle of derech lichlos, you can wash your hands, and you can draw your hands on the garment that has the meraglayim, and that therefore it's mutter. According to the Ri, it's usher. It should be usher because it's a dirty garment. No, it's not considered a dirty garment. As long as it's not, has no stain on it, it's not considered dirty. In any case, he says, Alter Rebbe explains, you're not trying to get rid of the urine. You're just adding to the urine. And because it's a small amount, it becomes bottle anyway. Okay, in terms of making baby wipes, or using baby wipes on Shabbos, I should say, some are makel and some are mashmer. That's the bottom line is. Those that are makel hold that the liquid is trapped in between. They're not actually squeezing it out. And on the other hand, some say no, that there is some liquid inside that you are squeezing out. The Maisa, it's better not to do it. And if one does it, they should do it carefully, slowly, and so on. Excuse me, what was I saying? Oh yeah, so you can wipe your hands on it. It's not considered like you're cleaning it. Once again, because you're not actually getting rid of the urine, you're just adding water, which is the halachic consideration. You're not actually getting rid of the urine, and there's no stain on it per se. As long as there's no stain, there's no isser of putting water on it, according to that answer of Tosfos. Okay, we also mentioned you should not wipe your muddy hands or otherwise filthy hands onto anything you might wash. A washcloth, a shirt, whatever it is, because you may be tempted to wash it. You should wash your hand, rather, in running water, and so on. Another option, one option is to use a napkin. It's the best one. You throw it out right away. Another option mentioned here, and in the Mechaber Mr. Shulchan Aruch, is a horse's tail, which the Mishnah Berurah proves that he doesn't mean a dead horse's tail. He means a live horse's tail, and he has some discussion about horse's tails being muktzah. He says perhaps it's not based on this, because it's only the hair of the horse, it's not the horse itself. It's easy to wonder about people who own pets on Shabbos, that it may be mutter to pet them. I don't know, you're not moving all animal. I don't know, something to think about. Okay, when it comes to drying, basically, you're allowed to dry, even if it's not a kliyam yochel tekach. Some kind of rag, even if it's not a dish towel. But if it does get soaked, it's a problem. You have to stop using it. On the other hand, if it's a designated dish towel, even if it's soaking on one side, you can use it from the other side. You can also do this same thing for cups. On the other hand, if the cups are narrow, Mr. Berurah, so that if you're putting in a saturated towel and you pull it out, you might squeeze some of that garment out, then it's asur. Okay, there's a section here about using mirrors. They used to have mirrors with a sharp edge, and a woman couldn't use them because they might use it to cut off and stray hairs. Nowadays, we don't really have such a mirror. Al Yosef says, by the way, a man is allowed to look into the mirror nowadays. It's not considered a womanly activity because they do it so often. Nevertheless, it should always be done in a it should always be done in a quick way, not like a studying oneself kind of way, which is more problematic because that could be Leisel Lashkever. Okay, if tzitzis become tangled, you let untangle them even on Shabbos. Just make sure not to tighten them out. That's a skila. But if the nuts themselves become entangled, then it's not going to be any good. Sorry. One more time. You're not allowed to tighten the knot as an Isser skila, tightening the knot. If the strings become tangled, you can separate them as long as they didn't come to you tangled from the factory, in which case untangling them might be a chiyuv chatas. But otherwise, it's not a significant act because we see that it's not usher to down with them as is. A person who comes late is allowed to put it on without checking, so it's clearly not ma'akev. So, therefore, one is allowed to do it in Shabbos according to Yalkut Yosef. It's also to squeeze hair, not with deraisa because it's absorbable, because there are droplets stuck in between it. It is also to squeeze a sheitel. In terms of washing soft plastic, let's just go back. We spoke about washing garments. Spoke about washing wood, washing plastic. Plastic is the same as wood, hard plastic. You're allowed to wash it, no problem. You're allowed to scrub it. Soft plastic resembles leather. And by leather, we said before, you're allowed to wash, you just can't scrub. So, therefore, you're not allowed to scrub soft plastic. The Maisa, the baby's bottles, the nipple is made of soft plastic. So, even though you're allowed to put water on it, maybe gently squeeze it. We're not allowed to actually squeeze it or use some kind of keli. To clean it, not allowed to scrub it. Okay. I hope you guys didn't notice I was falling asleep in the middle of this year from time to time. It's been a long day. And I wish you all the best. I do owe you one more shear before this little mini vacation is over. And that's going to be on Shin Gimel Shin Ballot, hopefully in the beginning of next week. Okay, I also sent you a review sheet, and that should help you with everything that we've discussed. Have a great week. All the best. Bye.